Taylor.
I'm Lucy. I'm Dana.
And we did our policy change on the mandated drug testing for welfare. So one of the biggest problems with government assistance is that it is being abused by people, and this is in ways where, like, if you have food stamps and things like that, people are giving and selling groceries to other people that it's not intended for. Like, maybe they have people living in a household that's like not just the families of the children, and so they're giving it to have other things like cash that it won't pay for, and then so like if they want like alcohol or cigarettes or drugs and things like that, they're switching it for people that maybe do want the groceries instead of the cash. And then the problem is that you're asking the government for money, and they're not using it for the reason for that intended use. And then because of that, it's hard to track the misuse because they won't know where the money has ended up, and people are just meeting the requirements to be accepted and then expecting them to use it for that intended purpose because of like what they asked for it for, and then they're unable to know where it's actually going to. And then some assistance programs like TAMP are they're not even required to report the improper payment reviews, and that's a problem because like on the next slide that I'll show you, they show percentages in billions of dollars that it's going out improperly, and so if they don't have a review for that, you're just kind of trusting that they're using that money for that purpose. And then like with most jobs, they even require drug testing to even be considered to work for them, and so like when you know with like when you're filling out a job application, it says, can you pay for, or are you like willing to do this drug test? Sorry, I thought I'm trying to and then like when even with jobs, then you do like they'll have you do like random drug screenings when you're working. And then the biggest problem with assistance is that people that are able to work won't, because with the assistance they say that they're getting much more help with like WIC and SNAP and housing, so they don't have to do anything because they have a full fridge and money all the time, instead of finding a job and making their own income. And that takes it away from the people that aren't able to work and actually need the assistance and aren't getting funded enough for that reason. So the General Accounting Office posted this in 2015, and then if you look at the SNAP, it's like 3.7% was the improper payment percentage, and so that was a $2.8 billion estimate. And then like TAMP and WIC, those things are on there too. And then as a total, it was a $71.5 billion that have gone out in improper payments by whatever reason, the misuse, or maybe the government gave it out in different payments that weren't intended for that. And so a history and overview. This information was as of 2011, and there was a $193 billion cost for people that are doing drugs and crimes. So that's fixing things like if there's crimes, you need to fix the damage that's done, or if somebody gets hurt, having to pay the health care for that, or then drug use if you need to pay for like overdosing and going to the emergency room for things like that. And then it will lead to a loss of productivity, because instead of paying for things like the government assistance for new people to get access, you're paying for to fix these drug and these crime problems. And so that relates to welfare people, because there's a 5 to 10% of people that are using drugs and having crime rates, and that's slightly higher than the average, or slightly higher than the general population. And so if they're doing these things, they need the resources from somewhere. So if they have assistance, then they're trading that in to get that money. And then as of March, there are 20 states already that have proposed some sort of drug screening to be able to get the assistance. And so that's a good step in the direction that we need, because this should be like a national thing, because every state has their own requirements to get the assistance. So if it's national, everything's the same, everybody would do drug screenings to be able to receive this public assistance, and then it would potentially lower the rates of like drug use and improper payments and crimes and things like that.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the current approaches, so things that they already have in place right now regarding mandating drug testing in welfare programs. So as of 2016, 17 states had some sort of proposal. It varies by state, like Taylor said, it's not a national thing. So only 17 states were as of 2016, and that's according to the National Conference of State Legislators. legislatures. And these proposals vary from state to state, so they're not all very consistent. And I found a lot of statistics from 2015 specifically. And in 2015, there were 10 states that had some sort of program, whether it was set in stone and they had a policy already made, or they had some like test kind of programs to see like what if it was going to benefit or hurt the state as an individual. So most of the states that have the programs, they do urine screens. And in 2015, they spent $850,000 on the drug screening process, and they had 321 positives. So it seems like a lot of money, but just for 1 year. But states spent anywhere from $7,000 per year on drug testing to $350,000. So obviously that's a very big window. So our goal is to kind of lower that to as low as we can for the whole drug screening process. And those states, the majority of the states, they only drug test people under suspicion. So we thought that that could bring up kind of like an ethical issue, because what really makes somebody suspicious. So we thought that could be kind of ethical. And there are 4 states, Maine, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, that only test the people that were previously convicted of a drug charge. So they're mandated to be tested for drug before they apply for welfare. And so the goal that most states have now is to kind of like scare people away from welfare if they are using drugs, because if people know that they're going to be drug tested, that would kind of make them not apply because they know that they're going to test positive. And just an example of that, in Tennessee, 116 people refused drug testing in 2015, and 36 people tested positive. So just alone in 1 year, 91 people didn't receive that assistance just from drug testing, and that's only the people that were under suspicion. So ideally, if you tested everybody, those numbers would go up. And the current problem with these programs is they're focusing not as much on the health aspect of it. So basically, they get drug tested. If they test positive, they don't lose anything. They just have to do treatment. So it's kind of, they're not really getting a punishment for using drugs because they still get to keep all their benefits. They just have to do a treatment. So that makes it kind of easy to sort of like cheat the system and say that they're doing treatment even if they aren't. And if they're not really getting punished, then you could just continue to use drugs because they're not actually losing that money. They're just having to do treatment programs. And I mean, I feel like they would care more about losing the money that they could spend on drugs than actually doing the treatment. And it doesn't really seem like it would be helping that much. Okay, so our proposed solution is that we want to do an annual hair follicle drug test before new government assistance can be granted. So it's going to be kind of like it's going to be part of the application process. So when they apply for welfare every year, they're going to be tested, and it's going to be at the same time every year. And they're going to be tested more. They could be subjected to more testing if they have suspected drug use. So say somebody on welfare gets caught with illegal drugs, or they get caught in the presence of illegal drugs, they can immediately have to be coming for testing, and they could lose a part of their benefits. And what we want to do is, if people test positive, we don't want to just say, here's a treatment plan, and you can keep all of your benefits, because like we said, that's not really like a punishment, so it's more of an incentive to get it back if they do the treatment plans, they'll receive their full benefits. So what we said, we were going to reduce their benefits by 25% for 6 months, and they will have to do that treatment plan in 6 months, and then after they complete the treatment, then they will be retested. If they test positive, they can receive the full amount that they applied for. And if they fail the second test after the treatment, then they're going to lose all of their benefits for the rest of the year. And so what we're going to do is we're going to offer inpatient, outpatient treatment programs for them, and they get to decide if they want to do it. If they don't do it, then they don't get their benefits. But if they do decide, they get the option to retest in 6 months. So we offer inpatient, outpatient rehab programs, and we also said church-based recovery programs, because obviously if people are applying for welfare, they don't have a lot of money to be spending on some kind of expensive rehab program. So oftentimes church-based recovery programs are free, and you can just go and be around people who have the same problems as you. So we said that we were going to support and encourage resources will be offered for anyone who needs them. So things like support groups, we don't want to treat them like they're anything less than normal people, just because if they do have a drug problem. So we want to encourage them to go to those support groups. And so the goal here isn't just to save money, it's also to help them in the long run to help their drug problem overall. Okay, so how the process is going to work is we're going to do a hair follicle test, and how that works is you just take a small amount of your hair and it tests the drug molecules in your hair follicles, and it can show drug use for up to 90 days, so it's much more reliable than urine tests, and all states now do is urine tests, so we decided to do hair testing because it is a lot more reliable. It can show history of drug use, not just, it can show severity. Urine test just shows whether it's in your urine or it's not. It doesn't say how much is in your urine, how long it's been there. Like, it doesn't really show severity. It's more sensitive rather than specific. So the pros to the hair testing is it lasts 90 days, or it goes up to 90 days. It detects history and severity of drug use. There's a lot less false positives with hair testing. With urine, there could be false positives, and it's a lot more accurate. There's kind of a more higher fear factor that goes along with it, because it is like a known thing that hair testing is more reliable than urine testing, and you can't really fake a hair test. So we said that because a lot of people, it's really common to fake drug tests because they're not being, most often urine tests aren't being monitored. They just have you go to the bathroom and then come out and take your specimen. But for hair testing, a medical examiner physically cuts your hair off of you, so you really can't fake that. And the hair can be taken from any part in your body, so if men don't have a lot of hair, they can take it from anywhere. You just need 1.5 inches. And some of you might be wondering, if they're bald and they don't have any hair, if they shave themselves all the way, then they will be subjected to a blood test. And that's the only reason that they would be subjected to a blood test, is if they happen to have no hair on their body. If they try to cheat the system and shave themselves so they can't get hair tested, then that's what our alternative would be. And we said the cons to the urine samples that most states have now is that urine can go out of your system in a couple weeks, so it's really easy to just sweat it out and get it out before you know you need to test. And it's a lot easier to fake. You can dilute urine. There you sell things that you can actually put in your urine to make the drugs go away. And like I said before, it's not being observed, so it's a lot easier to do those types of things. It doesn't measure severity, just whether it's in your system or not. And although it is cheaper, it's a lot less reliable than the hair follicle test. Okay, so the impact and the result of this drug testing is to ensure that government funds are going to the right reason. A lot of people who pay for this are taxpayers, so it's like us and our parents and our friends. So we don't want that money to be going to things that aren't for the right reasons. So, for example, in 2015, there were 96,000 people total welfare applicants, and 3,000 of those which were tested and 321 tested positive, and that's about 10%, and that's only the people that were under suspicion. So ideally, if you test more people, you're going to get more positive results, so hopefully that would make the number go up. And a stigma would be connected with welfare recipients that they are drug users. We want to avoid that. Because we don't want welfare to be associated with drug testing. So testing everybody would make it would kind of help the stigmatism instead of just testing people who are under suspicion, because if you test everybody, it's just a standardized thing. It'll make it easier to identify people who are using drugs and help them, because a lot of people who use drugs don't have a lot of money, so they do have to apply for welfare, so it kind of makes it easier to make those treatment options available to them. And drug testing will enact fear or concern for drug users on welfare. So basically, if they know that they're going to have to be drug tested to get money, then they might stop using drugs, because they might think it's more important to have money to eat food than it is to have money to eat drugs. So hopefully, not everyone might think that, but we're hoping that that could make an effect on that. Okay. So in terms of advantages, it has actually already been starting to be implemented, policies that are similar to ours in regards of drug testing and screening in 15 other states, and that's also starting to increase currently. So some states that are already implementing policies similar to this one are Alabama, Florida, Michigan, Tennessee, and Wisconsin.
This will help to ensure that recipients are using welfare money for food, housing, and other necessities, and less likely to abuse the welfare and what it offers. Also, it discourages long-term welfare use if regularly tested, drug tested, and it prevents illicit drug use in the poverty class, and can have potential to save taxpayer dollars in the long run. That concept is a little debatable. There's arguments on both sides whether it is a waste of taxpayer money, or when you think in terms of long term, it might actually be a good idea to use the taxpayer dollars in the long run. So in terms of disadvantages, in terms of like unreasonable searches, policy could be viewed as unconstitutional, and it could also be viewed as discrimination towards the lower class and recipients, as well as like poverty class. It can be very expensive, and some may consider it as a poor use of taxpayer dollars. It can be stigmatizing towards individuals that are on welfare or drug users, and may deny welfare to children. And you don't always think that children are directly impacted by the benefits that welfare offers, but even if the parents are drug users, the children are going to suffer as well if welfare benefits are taken away. As far as alternatives go, if there is not enough hair, which Lucy had said, we would turn to a blood test. It would be a 10-panel blood test that would cost around $279 according to requestatoTest.com per test. And a 10-panel blood test, it looks for common drugs, and it has a shorter detection window. The detection period can take 12 or less hours, but sometimes it may take a day or two to process. Some drugs that would be detected through a blood test would be cocaine, opiates, oxycodone, marijuana, and methadone. So with the blood test as an alternate, it eliminates the risk of the sample being tampered with. It's sometimes with urine tests, which also can be used as an alternate in other cases, but not ours. We're choosing the blood test because it's easy to tamper with the urine test because you have that privacy when samples are being taken to switch in the sample. And then, so the blood test is a very accurate form of testing and a great alternative to have. In terms of cost, it would cost about $105 to $125 per test nationally. And then, as I said before, comparing it to a urine test, which will trace about a few weeks to a month rather than the 90 days that the follicle test will be able to trace back. Follicle testing, we'll be able to trace back for that 90 days. So even though it's more expensive, it still may be worth the cost. And it could also detect those chronic users as well, since its traceback window is so large. And it would cost each state about $850,000 to $1 million per year to test and screen the recipients, but that would vary with the increase and decrease of recipients. So, like as was said before, if recipients know they're going to be drug tested, they might be less likely to want to apply for the welfare. So they might decrease the numbers of recipients because they know they're going to most likely not be able to pass that drug screening and testing. So that might cut down costs as well. And then in terms of punishments, testing positive and refusing help. So if you don't want to go through our rehab programs, then you will lose the government assistance for 12 months and be retested after that 12-month period. And then if you test positive and are willing to receive help and participate in our rehab program, you will only decrease 25% of that government assistance rather than all of it. And then you will complete the rehab program that we have, and then you will be retested within 6 months for a chance to win back that 25%. And so what we're trying to do is more like try to influence people to go get that help, participate in our rehab program, and then you won't lose as much of your assistance as you could if you did refuse to get help. So we're trying to like shine a positive light. Like we know that like addiction is real and it's hard to deal with. So instead of like completely taking away from that assistance, we want to get people to get help. And then so overall, like our program will kind of like weed out those people who might be taking advantage of the welfare system, but we'll also be helping those who are dealing with their own problems. So that's about it. And here are our references.